Hi friends, in this first section we are going to be talking about appraisals. So a good place to start is, what is an appraisal? Essentially, an appraisal is used to determine a value for a certain item. Now, we're talking about a real estate course here, so we're of course going to focus in on real estate. But you could get an appraisal on any type of item. You could get your car appraised, you could get some jewelry appraised, you could get a coin collection or stamp collection, collectibles appraised. There's many uses of appraisals. The key is we want to figure out the value of this particular item. Now, when we use the word appraisal, sometimes we interchange it with another similar word, which is what we call an assessment. But an assessment and an appraisal are not exactly the same thing. For you property owners in the group here, you've probably seen your property tax assessment notice where they tell you the value of your property. So you say, well then, Samir, what is the difference between an assessment and an appraisal? Actually, an assessment is a type of appraisal, a very specific type. For an assessment, there are three key characteristics that make it different than a general appraisal. Number one, an assessment is done on a specific point in time. So for example, property tax assessments are done July 1st every year. The second thing about assessments are they are done on the entire property. A property tax assessment notice would show you the value of your land and what we call land improvements, anything on top of the land. Appraisals can be done for any portion of the property. It doesn't have to be the entire property. The third thing is who does the work. Both people who do appraisals and assessors are trained in more or less the same way. But typically speaking, an assessor is working for a government body, like a municipality, like the city of Vancouver. So an assessment then is done on the entire property at a specific point in time by typically a government officer. An appraisal can be done at any point in time on any portion of the property by a private individual, an appraiser. So where do we use appraisals? Because that's what this chapter is talking about. Appraisals can be broken into two categories, what we call statutory reasons for an appraisal and what we call a market reason. You're probably most familiar with the market reasons. So when you are going to get a loan to buy a property, for you that have mortgages right now, you probably know that property needs to be appraised first so the lender can be secure of its value. So financing or refinancing is a very common place to use an appraisal. If you're selling your home, you might get the property appraised so that you can list it at a fair price. Make sure you get a good number of people coming in to make offers. You don't list it too high, don't list it too low. You get a fair value for it. If you're the buyer in a property sale transaction, you might want to get the property appraised to make sure you're not paying too much for it. So buying, selling, financing, refinancing, these are what we call market reasons for appraisals. Statutory reasons for appraisals can also be thought of as legal reasons. So for tax purposes, we need to get appraisals done. When somebody passes away, an appraisal needs to be done on this person's estate to figure out how the estate is going to be divided up. Also, when you pass away, we have what we call estate tax. It used to be called death tax. The government didn't like the name, so they changed it to estate tax. When you pass away, you have to pay tax on your belongings. So an appraisal is going to be done there as well. We also have what we call expropriation of land or assets. Expropriation is where the government takes your land away from you. Remember, here in Canada, all land is ultimately crown land. So if the government needs to, they will take that land from you. Technically speaking, they don't have to pay you anything, but they get an appraisal done and they pay you out fair market value for the property. That's expropriation. So appraisals are used to figure out a value of a property, and we can break those into two categories, either statutory reasons or market reasons.